Da 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 da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. And if you've never popped into one of my lives before, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and you never know when I'm going to show up. But you can count that I will show up. Okay, let me just clean my desk here a little bit. I bought this karaoke microphone. There's a song that I want to learn. We all have that one that one song for karaoke day that we can all do perfectly. Mine was always Country Roads, and I thought I'd up the game a little bit and learn a little bit of something a little bit more current. And so I thought this might help. I might like download an app and find my song and start practicing, and then invite my sisters and a few of my friends that I haven't seen for a long time, and maybe we can have an evening out. Maybe we'll go to a karaoke bar or something, and I can impress everybody with my singing skills. Them not knowing that I practiced it and probably failed over 100 times in getting it presentable at the very least. And that's kind of where we're going today, a little bit in that failure. This week we had that word come across our paths, and I was really not surprised that it came across my path, and that was the word willingness. And it kind of tied into the word that we had last week, which was perception, right? And it just seems it's not odd because these things happen all the time. I find each word is just perfectly fitted in like the next puzzle piece, the next answer, the next step. And I have been saying that it has been a little bit unexpectedly harder than I thought it would be. Maybe I just thought I was going to fluff my way through it, right? Not realizing that these words were, right, important. They came across my path in that moment. And so I have to play with those words. And because I present, right, the words to anybody who wants to come in and hang out with me, right, I have to not necessarily be that expert in that word, but have a perspective, right? Be able to have a perception and work it through, and just it's not double checking. Maybe it is my hypervigilance that I don't want to be making mistakes in the long run, but mistakes happen. And that's what I was going to say today. Um, it's in that failure, it's in keep trying until you finally get it right. It's only unknown until it's known, right? And then once it's known, you can get yourself to that point where you can be expert in that. Okay, let me have a sip of my coffee before I lose track. Pull it back to the main trunk. So I wanted to to have a perspective in this word that we got, willingness, this week, because right, mankind would not be where we're standing right now in this moment in time if it wasn't for that word, willingness, right? For not trying and trying and trying until you finally get it right, not being afraid to make those mistakes. I mean, right? How many times did they jump off the cliff, the Wright brothers, in trying to fly that plane? Probably not too many. It was probably not a good analogy there, because you wouldn't want to, right, jump the cliff unless you had a pretty good set of odds of being able to, right, hit that mark that you wanted to make. But again, that's the thing. It's in that innovation. It's in having those experiences and trying things out, right? It's in the science. It truly is in the science of it. But, it's all aspects, it's just not one field. I truly believe it's the biological part of us, right? That psychological part of us, right? And that social part of us right now that is taking such a beating in this digital age, right? We're isolating. We are very social creatures as human beings, and right, in order for mankind to move forward, we have to be able to keep going, to keep stumbling, to keep trying, keep just willing just to keep moving in some way, right? Because you can't win in just sitting for it to land in your lap or land on your head, right? You have to keep moving. You know, one thing about being in the topics that I'm in, I love history, I love Mother Nature, and I love working with emotions. I love understanding emotions. I love learning about those dynamic relationships, and they are dynamic, right? Because, right, they're a mix of really poopy stuff, and they're a mix of amazing, dazzle, right? Heartbreaking, wondrous, long lasting, right? And we can't move in our life without stumbling, without making mistakes, without having those failures come about in our lives, right? Because that's how we become the expert, right? You just don't wake up this morning in the morning and say, "Hey, I'm going to be a gold medalist in long jump." And the next week you got the gold medal in long jump. No, it's the sweat, it's the determination, it's remembering, right? Your dream, always having that as your main number one focus moving forward. Of course, things are going to come away. Those are your obstacles, those are your problems, those are your heartbreaks, those are your adventures, those are the distractions that, right, you might not think are beneficial. You might think that just might be taken away from what you're trying to focus on, what you're trying to be expert in. But sometimes we have to be pulled away so that we can come back with a fresh look, with a fresh attitude, with possibly, right, new perceptions that might lead to new perspectives. But that doesn't happen unless we're willing to fail, if we're willing to just keep moving, unless we're willing to get up when we fall, when we stumble, right? Every day. I remember when I was trying to quit smoking. Oh my goodness. I'd go to bed at night and I'd say, "This is my last cigarette. I'm never having another cigarette." And it was the silliest thing, too. I didn't even start smoking cigarettes until I was 27. I quit smoking cigarettes when I was 37, but I was pretty hardcore into that smoking scene when I was in it. And there was a point where I would just, right before I go to bed, I'd say, "Okay, I got to finish this cigarette off, and right, this is the last cigarette. I'm going to get up in the morning, and that's it. No more cigarettes." And I did that every day, honestly, for years. Did I ever quit smoking in any of those days, any of those nights that I said that was my last cigarette? Did I ever make it through a morning, let alone a whole day, not having a cigarette? Possibly just the morning, just long enough to run to the store to get another package of cigarettes, right? They were only $10 a package when I was smoking, and I thought that was really, really high. They're close to, well, I think they're more than $20 a package now, right? And I still know people who smoke a package every day. No judgment in that, right? It's my father was calming his system down with cigarettes, but in those days, the doctor says, right, start smoking, and that's no excuse because I'm sure my dad knew that smoking was not good for him. At that time, they didn't put the warnings on the cigarette packages, but just like me, he was always trying to quit smoking. My dad was a 2-pack a day, right, person, and he'd give us his cigarettes and he'd say, hide them. Don't give them back to me. Well, if I'm not giving them back to you, how about if I just throw them away? This is what I'm thinking, but I'm the kid. I follow my dad's instructions. I put them away. He might last a day or two, and then he's saying, okay, I need my cigarettes. Give me my cigarettes back. And we give him his cigarettes back, right? But he never stopped trying to quit smoking cigarettes. And, after those 10 years and you get that hacking phlegm in your throat, you come in from wintertime and people are looking at you with these faces, right? Because cigarette smoke sticks to clothes when it's wintertime, when you're outside having a cigarette, right? And that hurts your feelings, especially when you're highly sensitive and you're empathic. And my dad was highly sensitive and empathic also. Must have hurt him greatly because it hurt me. But right, I was in that stubborn stage, I go look at a bus shack and I point at it and I go, that's your smoking section, right? Being outside and in the open, that's my section. And that's the kind of attitude I had. Now I'm a little bit more considerate. I was even considerate back then. I really was, right? But every once in a while, if you looked at me with the side eye, right? I like the lessons. Okay, you guys, to pull it back, just this idea of right, being willing to be right, adjusted in our thinking. We grow up in families that are steadfast in tradition and culture and religious and political ideas and grandma's favorite recipe, and this is how you scrub a floor, right? And lots of these things serve us well, right? And sometimes in emotional attachments, we take them along in the next generation. Can I tell you what I took along, right, from my father's, right, example? I took along his gambling. I became a gambler myself. My dad was a gambleaholic. Is that what you call them? He was addicted to gambling, and I had that emotional attachment. Right, it made me, I guess, feel close to him, or maybe I convinced myself that it wasn't wrong, right? Because my dad did that, and my dad was never wrong, right? So maybe I was kind of, right, again, making excuses for myself. Hello, Melvin. Hello, Melvin, dear. Good time for another sip of my coffee because well, Melvin knows how I can start rambling. Thank you so much for popping in. Mm, my days off are finished. Grateful to be going back to the job that puts the roof over my head, right? Happy to be grounding and right, having a new perspective, being able to interact with people, right? These past few days, I stayed with myself. I really felt like I needed to stay by myself, right? I feel I don't know if it's like mass hysteria or what it is. It's just like everybody is just stirring the pot, right? And unless we're directed to that, unless we're compulsed and desiring to be involved in that, we shouldn't be involved in that, right? I barely keep up on what's going on in the news. I heard they found a new sarcophagus in Egypt at the end of March, on the 28th of March, the 22nd of March, and they just got it. They just got it out of the pit. It was pretty shallow, but it was made of slab, and it was super, super heavy. And they had to make sure that they did repairs on it and stuff before they could get the crane to pull it out. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to right be a perspective, or what is it? Um, Not a participant, but a spectator as to the opening of the sarcophagus, what's actually inside of it, and the story of that time in that day and age. I love archaeology. I love right history, and I've always been a bit of a history buff all my life, and I tie it into my brand. And if you haven't seen any of my other videos, if you're just popping into the podcast, go to my main page, you guys. I've got bushcraft videos, I got urban exploration videos, I got back road videos. I got my surviving Cindy building a winter fort uh, videos, right? I did 2 seasons of that one. That was never giving up, right? Being willing to try something new, right? To take in the lessons so that we're more open and more ready to receive the next lesson and be able to move along with that a little bit. And that's all that I did, right? I stumbled along, I made mistakes, I failed, I got up, brushed my knees off. I just keep going. And you can look at my channel, right? You say, Cindy, you've been at this for 10 years. I have been at this for 10 years. And I say that with a smile, right? Because, like Elvis Presley said, I did it my way. I did it in a way that was true to me. And, I want to make sure that the right people are getting this, right? And I suspect that they are. I have to do a little bit of dancing around the subject sometimes. And I'm grateful that I have some very perceptive. I have some very perceptive audience here that, right, possibly might pick up on a little bit of a lesson that I picked up along the way, or pick up on the evidence of a lesson that I might have played with a little bit, and it's showing in the progress in what I'm bringing to the table each night. But it doesn't happen without showing up, without being willing to hold myself accountable in that showing up. Because sometimes, right? I always say it, the couch and the remote control, because it's a good analogy, and especially right now, when you feel that pushback, you feel that that enticement for something else, right? And I think for what I'm doing and from where I'm sitting right now with my brand, I'm feeling quite content with it, right? Prairie Dodgers, my channel. Did it by myself. Now, I didn't really always just do it myself because I learned along the way, but I had to search out the lessons, right? I did. And in gratefulness, every once in a while, right? Because I made that movement, because I made that decision that I was just going to brush my knees off and just pick myself up and just keep moving when I fall. When I failed, I wasn't going to look around to say who's watching me, right? Who saw me fall, right? Because I'd like to make sure that everybody sees that it's okay to be, right, a little bit kinked in ways. What's important is that we made it here, right? Sometimes in that adapt and conquer, we have to grow, right? We adapt to that extreme that extreme weather, that extreme environment, right? And in that failure, because there was a lot of fails in there, because it's obvious, because you can see how you've grown, right? But at least you've grown, right? At least you've accomplished because you never gave up. You said, I'm just going to grow anyway. And I might look a little funny. I might look a little bit crooked, but that's okay, right? Because the Wright brothers didn't jump off the cliff. How many times? I don't think very many times. I think they probably had the program pretty down packed before they took that risk themselves. And did they even take that risk themselves? I wonder. I think I might do a little bit Googling because, it's quite possible that they had hired a pilot to do that because they were the inventors of the plane, right? They were in the running with the French, I think, right? But they hit it first, so they get the credit in that. But it's not like they just woke up and said, "Hey, right? We are going to jump off the cliff and this plane is just going to fly across the farm field, right? Land all nice and soft." No, there were mistakes and bumps and crashes and rebuilds and try again, right? And there were accolations and awards, right? Right? That's self pride, that self worth that comes from the admiration of others for what you bring to the table. That's a part of it. That's a part of it too. But you have to have that, right? That's the stick with the bag at the end, right? That's that enticement. That's the reward. That's my trip in September, right? and it's the way it goes. You work with what the lessons have provided you in the moment, and through the experiences that we've had, we've picked up tools and gifts along the way. And we bring those to the table too when necessary. Okay, you guys. Sometimes I tend to ramble. Yes, I tend to ramble. Ramble, ramble, ramble. Right? But we'll see. Right? See if you can still say that in 10 years, right? When I'm 72 years old and I'm sitting here. Melvin, you're just going to say, Cindy, you're rambling. You're still rambling. Okay, you guys. That's my good cheer. And we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.